My name is Eric Pulido, and I was in that band.
Hey, Eric, I'm Grady.
What's up, Grady? Good to see you.
Welcome.
Love being here.
Man, I'm glad you're here in Denton, Texas.
In Denton, Texas, and on a little bit of a dreary day, but it's got a vibe to it.
I'm loving it.
I am too.
I got soccer tomorrow, and I know I got days ahead where I'm just going to be sweating and baking in the sun. So
Awesome.
like
Yes.
anything that's other than that, I'll take it.
My daughter has soccer tomorrow, and it's the sun was out last week.
Yeah.
Actually, it was the last, or at least the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. What's been going on?
Man, all good things. Family's doing well. Kiddos are growing up big and strong. Conrad just started trombone. He took his first lesson with Mr. David Pierce, which I thought that was really cool. He does play some drums too, but he's kind of hopping around and figuring out things. Both of the kids do choir and love singing, and it's kind of fun to have an art thing and a sport thing, or at least an active thing. So Emmy does cheer and gymnastics and soccer, and Conrad's more like football, baseball, and so that's been great with the kiddos. Us Midlakers just got back not long ago from a little trip overseas, and that was fun to do it again and put out another album, and just grateful that people still care and come out, and that was really neat. It was only about a 2-week run, and we tried to cover as much ground as possible, but we'll do a little more this year. But it was just great to get the record done, especially logistically. Not everybody lives here anymore, and so writing kind of remotely, doing some writing, getting together a little bit, and then obviously coming together to make the album out at Echo Lab, which was just a blast, obviously, with Matt. And actually Matt was on tour right then, but out at the Echo Lab is always just great, and working with the guys. And Norman Roscoe's chugging along, doing great. Just did a Willie's festival last week at Spicewood, and was great to just be out there again and print some shirts and growing that thing. And then the bar, Pascal Bar, still there, which is half the battle. Things are good. Love all the things in Denton. A lot I know we've chatted about. Just feels like the pendulum's kind of swinging, and there's some more activity and new folks, and just new developments and stuff downtown, which is kind of obviously where I'm mostly at, and I feel like the heartbeat of the city. So, yeah,
man, you got a lot of irons in the fire. It's great. I think that's like a solid way to approach like an artistic life.
Well,
anymore.
As you know, especially nowadays with music and being a musician, it's like it's hard to just do that and make sense out of it. So to do some other things is part necessity and also kind of just fun. I mean, I like creating things and just being active, and it's been fun to do that kind of in these different mediums, but all kind of artistic in a way, as well. So
yeah, you're a contributor for sure. So the Midlake thing, I was thinking about, I knew we were getting together, and I was thinking about you guys. I feel like my knowledge of Midlake might predate you a little bit, because like when I first came to town, they were still doing kind of what everyone was doing, which is kind of like jazz, or like kind of funky or fusion-y things with Tim on the sax, and like I remember doing some gigs with them, and then I lived in the neighborhood kind of west of campus on Hickory Street. It was like a lot of traffic, people walking by. I would see everybody. I could sit on my porch and like see everybody, and I remember seeing at least those 4 guys like on a Friday or Saturday night. You're like, what are y'all doing? Where are y'all going? Like, we're going to practice.
Right.
Or we're going to, and I know it's always been, the creative process has been we are getting together and gonna be creative and like set aside time for that.
Yeah.
And So I'm curious about, like how you even got into that,
Right.
into that scene, and then now how's it like evolved into, I mean, because you got a couple guys in Tennessee, and how does that process work for you guys now?
Yeah. So really my involvement comes down to Mackenzie. Mackenzie Smith, who I grew up playing at church in Houston. We met when we were in high school, and he kind of was my gateway. And he, to this date, always says you're welcome about everything, in my life, because he was the one that kind of opened the door to Denton and to Midlake for me. I'll try to give the long story short.
I'll take it all, man. Yeah,
but
as tangential as you want.
We played just like a praise and worship band, at church, and he played in another band as well. Mackenzie was just cooler than the rest of us. We're just like nerds and just loved music, but kind of that was the outlet, for the most part for us other guys. And when he graduated, he went to North Texas and I went to A&M, but that was 97. But we remained friends, and I would come visit Denton just to come hang. And obviously once the band that you're talking about is called Cornbread All Stars, and it was just like, acid jazz funk,
Yeah.
And Tim was on the saxophone, and Evan Jacobs played keys, and Eric Nicholson played guitar. Paul played bass, and Mackenzie on the drums. That morphed into Midlake after Tim kind of started singing and writing, and I was just on the outside as a friend and fan, obviously meeting the guys. Coming up to Denton felt like a portal to Narnia to me, because I grew up, kind of suburbs of Houston, then Texas A&M, just kind of a more just conservative, not necessarily politically, but just a very simple kind of sheltered, pious type of existence. And Denton was like, I felt the arts just oozing out of the community and the people and the parties or the venues. I remember being with Mackenzie once and going into Rick's place, and Rob G and the Latin Pimps were playing, and I didn't know Rob or Dave at the time or any of the guys. And we walk in there and it felt like Gary and Wyatt from Weird Science, like walking in, like the record stop, like people are like sweating and dancing, like, hi, like just feeling out of place. But I just, again, these things, even though probably just seemed so normal, to the Dentonite that was around, it was just new to me, and I hadn't experienced that. You'd go to a house party and there'd be, drums and an amp and a, keyboard set up, and people are kind of rotating out and playing. I'm like, how are they doing this? It was just really cool, but foreign to me. And so I always had an affinity and a love and just an attraction, to Denton and the scene that existed. But as far as Midlake was concerned, I was just a fan. They'd send me, tapes or CDs of like tracks that they were working on, and I'd kind of give my 2 cents, be like, man, that's great. I love it. Booked a couple shows at A&M at College Station, third floor cantina in downtown Bryan for the band, and would like invite my friends and bring people out. And they were like, man, this Pulido guy he's really helping with the business side. So the band was like, we want you to be our manager. And even on that first Milkmaid Grand Army EP on the back, the original pressing says Eric Pulido Management on it. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just like, I loved the band and the guys, and I was going to school for business. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was like, maybe this is some type of music industry thing I can figure out. So I get to the last summer before I graduate that next semester, and a friend of ours, also who I met through Mackenzie, named Sally, had done an internship in New York for Universal Motown Records. And I had met her at a party, like the Christmas break before, and we were talking, and she said, "Man, I just did this internship last summer. You should go do this internship." I was like, "Well, I'll apply for it." So I apply for the internship, I get it, and I go to New York, summer of 2001, pre 9/11, just kind of, just an amazing summer. Every band that I loved was coming through town, seeing Radiohead twice, Bjork, Rufus Wainwright, just great.
That's amazing.
Everybody comes through
right at the right age too.
Oh yeah. Saw Roxy Music. Anyways, so I do the internship, and I don't get it wasn't like a job offer type thing. It was just kind of experience. But I remember McKenzie came and visited, actually. And at the time, the band was a 4-piece. And they had gone through a couple iterations with a 5th person, but ended up not working out. So they were a 4-piece, and even made that EP as a 4-piece.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Would that be crazy if you joined the band?" And I was like, "You don't want me. I'm not good enough. You need to go find like a badass guitar player and that be, who you have. I'm not good enough." And I was like, well, just a thought. Summer ends. I go back to school to finish the last semester and graduate. And I remember it was December 2nd, because it's my dad's birthday. They call me kind of on speaker, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to join the band. Are you in?" I was like, "Okay, guess I need to go buy an amp and a guitar." I mean, at the time, I mostly played acoustic, I had growing up when I was younger, like a Ibanez, like I think it was called Ibanez Axe Star Smurf Blue, with like a V that I would play with like a pig nose, as a hack, but I needed to get real gear if I was going to do this. And so I graduated, and at the end of 2001, I moved to Denton, and this is what I'm doing. And so I guess that was a long way to say that's how I got introduced or to Denton fully. Even though I had been visiting in the late 90s, I didn't move here till the end of 2001 and joined the band and just started the journey.
So that's I feel like I remember the 4-piece setup. I was just like a sound guy, and I remember they would come to Rubber Gloves and play, and I guess I remember there was always a keyboard involved, and that would probably be Nicholson, and maybe Tim would do a little bit.
Yep.
And then but I loved I remember, and I got chummy with McKenzie too, and that he would, I remember him passing off that EP to me and things like that. And then so I don't, it's I feel like I watched this growth, but it was never very obvious to me what was going on. It was because the guys they felt kind of secretive about it or something, and I remember either him or Nichols being like, "Oh yeah, Tim got a guitar. He doesn't want to play the saxophone anymore, and he's writing songs, and they're great." And being like, "Oh, cool!
Right.
That's exciting, and so." But I remember, either maybe the 4-piece or at least that EP band playing it at Gloves, and watching. I love watching everybody, at least those two dudes, Tim and Eric, kind of move around a bit. Maybe you had joined at that point.
Yeah, in those early days. Well, when I first joined, we were just playing songs from the EP and then new songs. We never really put out anything in between that EP and then the first album, right. Bam Nanus Livercork in 2004. But there was a lot of music that Tim was writing and we were playing live. But yeah, there was just I think you said this earlier, and it was definitely through my time, partly for good reason, because I needed to get better and I wanted to learn, and we would rehearse every night, and then we'd go to the bar at midnight and do it all again. Of course, we had day jobs, so we would a lot of times even get up in the mornings, do some work, whether that was because we were trying to do a music video and we needed to get some stuff together for that. We'd go to work, get off work, and get a quick bite and rehearse. And I did take a little bit of classes at UNT just because why not? I mean, I'm an idiot with music, so I need to learn because I don't know what these guys are talking about with the augmented chord or something, you know.
Yeah.
But I took very little. It was just like theory, aural skills. I took a little classical guitar. But it really was just playing more, and obviously even rehearsing on my own time. And Mackenzie and I were the same age. The other guys were a little bit older, so it was almost like like them saying, "Hey, learn this. Go play this. You know, check this out." And me just trying to keep up. And then as it got closer to Bamnan and Slivercork, we had like a Rhodes keyboard, you know, for the longest time, but it wasn't as keyboard heavy. The script flipped a little bit, and we started playing where like me, Tim, and Nicholson were playing keyboards as well as maybe a guitar, depending on the song. So it's very keyboard heavy.
Yeah.
So really for me personally, you know, I was never really a great lead guitarist, so it was kind of like more comfortable of just playing like more rhythm or parts, and then, you know, playing like, you know, beds of sounds with a keyboard, or maybe a little bit of easy lead stuff. So it was like, that was kind of the sweet spot. And obviously, you know, bands like Grandaddy and Flaming Lips and Mercury Rev and stuff were, you know, kind of in the wheelhouse of, man, these bands are doing it. And we really love them. And they're kind of carving out a segment of whatever indie, you know, is. And kind of feeling like that might be the path. And ultimately, I mean, that was the album and the music, demo wise at the time, that got us signed and kind of started the journey with Bella Union.
Yeah. I had Will Kapanos in here, and like, you know, I hadn't quite put together like that lineage of like, you know, Live to Experience to Jet Screamer to Midlake.
Yeah.
That he very much, you know, laid out.
Yeah. You know, obviously at the time, I think we probably only knew Live to Experience, and part of that was probably just through Andy Young, you know. And he was the one that ultimately gave Simon that it was like maybe 6 or 7 songs of a demo of Bamnan and Slivercork. And he was, you know, obviously fellow drummer with Mackenzie, and they chat, and we're all trying to figure out how we get to this next level, and seeing some other bands get signed, and just wanting to figure out how to do it. And he had shared that with him, and obviously Live to Experience at that time had put out an album that really helped bring Bella Union to the forefront, I think, for a lot of folks in that world. And so him sharing that with him got Simon to write us and just said, "I want to have Midlake's babies." We're like, I think this is a good thing. And obviously learning, you know, about Mandarin or Jet Screamer, and obviously seeing like, this guy Simon's got something for Denton, you know, and obviously more bands after that he ended up signing, and Robert Gomez, Ari Rohr, Field Division. So yeah, it was a really cool time of trying to figure it out and not knowing how. And even to this day, it's kind of a bit of it's just not a straight line usually, you know, and it's just a difficult thing to kind of figure out. It was really helpful. And I think it still is when you have folks that share, you know, just share the music with somebody. And obviously with Simon, he's a rare bird, because he to this day will listen, you know. He'll tell you like, "I don't think this is right for us," or, "Oh, I love it, I'd love to hear more," or, you know, whatever. And I think that's kind of an anomaly, you know, where you're like, how do I send my stuff somewhere? Are they even going to listen? It's, you know,
Still to this day, I mean, you can market to someone all you want. People can hear about something all you want, but it still takes someone that you trust going, "Hey, check this out."
Yeah.
And that's something I continually focus on is like, I mean, I'm a person who's hungry for finding something new or different or discovering something, but all it takes is a friend going, "Oh, hey, check this out."
Yeah.
And that will like kick open the door for me.
And even, at that, we were so grateful that we were going to get signed, but we didn't really know even what that meant, because to be honest, we didn't sign anything. It was just kind of a handshake deal of like, I'll put this album out. Let's get the artwork together, let's, get it mixed and mastered, and it got mastered at Abbey Road, which we thought was the coolest thing ever. It's like,
still is.
It is. And obviously getting a review in a magazine or making a music video, like all these things were so new and so cool. And obviously traveling overseas, playing for no one, but just was like, man,
exciting.
I still, and to this day, I'm just, it's almost like a means to an end. Like I get to go with my buddies and go see some of the world, and I hope it's a great show as well. That time, I even being younger, I still greatly appreciated that opportunity. And also because you don't know where it's going to go, like this might be it, know. And that album didn't do well. It flew under the radar. It did provide opportunities. It did create relationships with folks like Jason Lee, who ended up becoming a great friend and contributor with photos and videos and stuff. But it didn't do well for the record label. And we all had day jobs, like I was saying at the time. I worked at a place called E-Instruction, which was just a stone's throw away from here. And you're in front of a computer all day, and we had like AOL Messenger, and Simon and myself and Mackenzie would always kind of chat. And Mackenzie and I would kind of have a side chat going, are we still signed? Are we even signed? Is he going to put out a new record? And at that time, things were changing with the influence, and Tim was kind of getting into a lot of that kind of West Coast folk rock, Fleetwood Mac, Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, Nash. So the sound was kind of changing, evolving, if you will, from where we were. And we needed to show Simon like new music, which is the same thing. It's still to this day, is like you kind of show what you're working on. I think we try to keep it as long as we can before we kind of reveal it and hope that Dad's like, good job, boys. But that one was, well, it was a little bit kind of ambiguous of what we are to the label and what this relationship is. And he again heard like the demos and was just way into it. And we might have even had Roscoe on that, and I think that was obviously was a big song for our career and kind of that album forging ahead. And ultimately it was the album that kind of set things in a bigger trajectory, I guess, as far as getting into just more countries and obviously growing in venues and listenership and album sales and all the things that you're like, wow, this is working, And it was just amazing to us to now not only just, we're going over there and that's totally cool, to we're going there and they're singing the song back to us. It was like, it just was huge. It was so moving,
Yeah. I mean, we're on some sort of, or around a landmark, right? Like it did a 20th anniversary.
The 20th this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, is there a big thing about it? Is there a reissue coming out or something like that?
We had talked about it because obviously in part of the narrative, obviously with Tim leaving after that next album, it kind of was always a thing, even coming back to Midlake after putting it down, of talking with Tim, and I'm still friends with Tim, and obviously we all keep in touch, if not just for the logistics of like accounting, a couple times a year. And we did, I think I was on the 10th anniversary, got back together and recorded a couple songs, and that was just great to reconnect. And, obviously we want to celebrate that album, and we do play some of those songs, and it's almost like paying homage to that time because it's me singing them. It's not Tim,
Right.
but always kind of like entertaining that, which I did. This is months ago, but said, "Hey Tim, would you want to like do? Thanks, but no." It's like cool. So
talk to you in 5 years about it again, or like
exactly.
when another anniversary comes up.
So we have done reissues, and you can. It's great to do, and maybe add a song or have a different color of the vinyl or remaster it, which we did remaster that album. But not, I guess, long way to answer your question. Nothing this year for that. So maybe looking ahead.
But I mean, yeah, it is it's funny because it is one of those records. It's like, to people who love it, they love it. It's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, I mean, and that's something, I don't know, like it hit on a big scale for a lot of people, and that's never going away. And it feels weird because I think in our industry, we are constantly kind of chasing something. It's either something new when you're young, or when you do hit on some sort of success, you're always like going to be like, can I replicate that in any way? And hopefully you're never looking back. You're more going, is there a way forward that will either find a home with our audience or a new one?
Right. Yeah, and to that point, for better or worse, every album that we've made, and the references or influences that we kind of wear on our sleeve, it's very authentic. It's like, we're really into this. Here's a new toy or something. When with that album, a lot of that music was new to Tim, but some of us, we already knew a lot of that music because, my dad listened to Fleetwood Mac, and so I love Fleetwood Mac, but it was something that we were kind of doing a deep dive into a lot of that world. It wasn't trying to be like, oh, nobody's doing that, or pastiche in some way. It was like, no, this is authentic. It's great music, and we're kind of rediscovering it together. And he's writing songs within that, kind of influence, and it's going to come out. It just so happened, I think, especially, like mid 2000s, you're starting to see that kind of indie folk rock thing happened, and obviously label mates, Fleet Foxes coming along, Bon Iver, and just a lot of those bands that it was kind of a thing. It kind of organically happened. And some of those bands, as previously mentioned, they took it to a whole nother level.
Oh yeah.
And it definitely, as it does, it kind of reshapes things and it kind of continues on and evolves. For us, I felt like, again, even though it was a very authentic and natural evolution, we started going down like the British folk influence of Steel Eye Span, Fairport Convention, Pentangle, and it showed itself in that next album, Courage of Others. We toured for a long while on Van Occupanther, and we kept growing. And obviously, you kind of don't want to stop that, but we didn't ever record and tour well, like at the same time, really, until the end with Tim. I think we got into a better groove of like, let's go play some shows, make a little bit of money, and then come home, because we don't have jobs anymore, and we kind of need to do both, and we had gotten to a place where we could go over and play a festival and make a little bit of money and come home. And that album, Courage of Others, 2010, and those tours, as it kind of happens with the waves, like it was some of the most successful tours we had done, and going to places like Australia that we had not done, and seeing like success in a real way, playing all the songs now from 3 albums. But that album, the album just, I think it was kind of feeding off of the popularity of Van Occupanther, and I think a lot of people did love that album, but it was different. It was just more melancholy and minor key, and just had a different vibe. So it was kind of fun figuring out how to make these songs work together in a live set. But I guess to your point earlier, not that we would change a thing. It wasn't like saying, oh, we did that thing, let's do that again. And we never did that, to a fault maybe, and even sometimes took too long in between records. But we were we treated it like a day job. We'd go to we had a studio of our own. We had moved out of the house because everybody was getting married, which you kind of need to do. But we were still making our own records, and we had, had a spot over there by Pan Ector and then moved across the street. And it was just great to have a space like that was away from your home and you could go work. And that's kind of how we treated it. And, did for a long, long time. It was great, but there is the law of diminishing returns where we would sometimes beat up a song a bit much, and it kind of became difficult, which ultimately was, I think, the reason for Tim's departure is just like he felt like in some ways like, man, I'm holding you guys back. And like, well, no, we kind of need you.
Yeah, right.
You're the core in a lot of ways, and it just became too difficult, and I don't think he wanted to feel that way. Like, man, these are my friends, and I feel like you guys are like angry or hate me or feel like I'm not able to get there, but I'm not happy with where the song's at, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
So it kind of, there at the end, it was just a few of us really even going to the studio every day, and I'm always the optimist to a fault. Like, we can get there, we can do this, let's keep it together, and it just didn't ultimately. And it took me a while to make amends with him and that, and because I was hurt, I was like, man, we've been working on an album for 2 years. This is after we had toured Courage of Others, and we had been working on an album it was going to be called Seven Long Suns, and we were playing a lot of that music even live, and it was just felt really alive. I felt like things were going in the right direction, but we ultimately couldn't capture it well enough, I guess, in the studio. So yeah, that was the beginning of the next chapter, which quickly began where we thought for a second, like, should we find another singer, kind of moves into that position, and I can kind of keep my role? Because at that time, it was kind of fortuitous, but I was singing a lot of the melodies with Tim, and then I'd split off into a harmony, and we were both standing kind of in the middle of the stage. I'd usually be the one talking or bantering, and so, it was 24 hours, and we were like, nope, Pulido, you're the guy, and we'll take some of the songs that we were working on, and that was the plan. And Tim wrote us and basically said, look, you can use this, you can use that, you can't use this, you can't use that. And we were like, man, fuck it, let's just start from scratch and just do it ourselves and write our own, material and album lyrics and everything. And so that's what we did. And within 6 months we had made Antiphon, which was the album that came out in 13, the end of 13, and kind of was it could have been the end, because I just felt like, maybe out of anger, or like I was saying, just being stubborn. I was like, man, we're going to figure this out. We had dates that paid well for festival dates that we were kind of like, is it okay if I'm the one singing? Because I felt kind of conflicted about that. And honestly, even with fans, like, I'm sorry, I didn't want this, but I'm doing the best I can, and they were great. I mean, they were so kind and receptive and understanding, if they even knew. Sometimes you wonder, like, do they even know or care? I've got a beard too. Maybe they just think, like, oh yeah, just sing the song, whatever. So anyways, that's what started that next chapter.
And I mean, I know you guys you guys write. I remember meeting, or like, running into you at the salad bar at Greenhouse, like little details that you remember. And during that time, y'all studio was just around the corner.
Yeah.
And you talking about, that was what was going on. And I think I knew Tim had left, but I didn't know what you guys were going to do. And I think in my mind, it was like, are they going to break up or keep going? And I remember we talked about it. We talked about Genesis, and we talked about Sabbath, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it happens. And I mean, whatever, if you're coming out of a Fairport convention phase, certainly you're like, the show must go on.
Right.
If you're into that, if you're like, that's one of those bands where it's like it's like the Byrds or something. You can be like, this whole like school of music.
Yeah.
You know, someone, it just like is like a institution. People pass through this band, and I know you guys are not that, but certainly you can go, this is our way of working. Someone's got to write the songs. Is that, I mean, did you immediately understand the pressure Tim was feeling when you step into that role?
Well, things changed and by necessity, because I wasn't prolific or good enough to say, oh, I've got this body of work, guys. Now just let's make an album. Like Tim and I were each respectively working on a solo album at the time that he quit. So I did have a little bit of material, but it wasn't a ton. And I did use one of those songs called Provider on that album. But the guys, like always, made it better. And also they were bringing ideas where maybe it was a musical idea and I wrote a melody or lyrics over it. Maybe it was a song that had a melody and I wrote to it. Maybe it had some lyrics. So there was, at that time, it was kind of like, let's lean on everybody's strengths and figure this out. And also, you know, you brought up, you know, Genesis, you know, not only like Trick of the Tail was Phil Collins' first album as the singer, and it was kind of cathartic, that story to me, and also we were kind of getting a little bit more into the prog world, and that was great too, because you just, you know, you lean on the musical aspect, you know, and maybe have a little more looseness or areas of instrumental that we really didn't necessarily have before, where everything was very like, it's the album, it's, you know, just copy and paste. Yeah. Let's stay within this bounds. And so it was kind of loosening that up. And Jesse, you know, who had already joined the band, was, and Joey as well, were kind of helping pave that way too, of like, man, we can do more, because we're not just a 5-piece with, you know, limited hands, if you will, you know. So now, which they were in the band when Tim was in the band as well, and we were a 7-piece, and it was just nice to be able to lean on all the possibilities, you know. And so that was already in the influence, even when Tim was in the band, and obviously leaving. You know, there was a band, or obviously you know this band, Yes, and they had an album called Tormato and a song called Onward, and that was kind of like my battle cry, like, onward, we're gonna go. And so yeah, it's a long-winded way of just saying that things changed, and really, I think, again, out of necessity, but I think also for better, because everybody felt like more a part of the process from beginning to end. There was nothing wrong with the way that we did things with Tim. It's just, we really leaned on him for the chief, like, singer, songwriter, song form. Let's work on this together in parts, but he's got a song here, you know?
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, I think that's from an outsider's perspective, I guess that's sort of what I thought it was, I mean, very much a group thing. Like I said, everything was very insider, you know, and very close knit. So I assumed, like, from that first conversation of, you know, Tim got a guitar, we are that kind of the genesis, if you will, you know, it comes from him. Yeah. But I knew there was work, and it was a very much a workshop thing going on. It wasn't a, you know, a front man. So I feel like what you're describing now does kind of fit you guys, you know?
And in some ways it did kind of, I guess that preface, or that evolution, it kind of, at least for me, it kind of made me better, you know, because back in the early days, it was like you kind of were fighting for parts and contribution. And because we were recording it ourselves, we had this old Roland VS 2480, and it had like where you could, have multiple tracks that you could kind of like try different ideas and go, oh, this one under.
Yeah.
So the studio was my house, so I could go just try things, and then you kind of go through the the process of, hey, everybody, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? No. Okay, so yes to this, maybe. Okay, and that would carry all the way to the mixing process of like us kind of being around and kind of feeling a pride of sorts of like making these songs better or just kind of contributing more, which was always seemed like just more difficult. And whereas, again, as it evolved, it kind of became, I think, less, well, not kind of, it was less like that. It was just like, I'm doing this thing. Of course, we could all have opinions, but you do your thing. And then maybe for the first time, which we did on not this album, but the album before, we had a producer in John Congleton. Mm-hmm. And it was like, man, let's let somebody else be the asshole and say yes or no, or just say, I don't know. We'll find out when it's mixed, like what made it or didn't make it or whatever. And that was the most freeing thing ever. I'll never go back, because it's just, even if now with our lives of not being able to, I can't clock in 8 to 5 and work on an album every day. Like we need to write when you can write, and that's going to be remotely, and then carve out a week or two in the studio to make an album. And that's it. And that kind of on definitely Bethel Woods was the first time. And then with the latest album, A Bridge to Far, we worked with Sam Evian, but it was the same thing. Go into a studio for 2 weeks. We know we kind of have a pretty good idea of the form and the songs, obviously, and let's just lean on this person to kind of tell us yes or no, or move on, or try that again, and it's just been great.
Yeah, what I think it's a blessing and a curse for our generation is you can just work something to death on your own, and I mean that maybe that's what happened to Tim. It was like you just, when you're sitting there and you have infinite possibilities, you can sit there and you can play the hell out of something and then mix the hell out of something. And I don't know, none of these things like necessarily make it better. Like I gravitate toward things that are like a little messy.
Right.
I love precision. I like listening to certain things, certain music anyway. But like when it comes to rock music or folk music or most things, I kind of like a little, if it's a little torn and frayed or something. And sometimes for me, that I feel like that comes from my experience anyway, is like we all have a good idea of the song and the form, and we get together and start playing, and then you just kind of wait for that moment of like, we got it.
Right.
Because I have stuff on hard drives of when Ryan and I lived together and we're working on several projects together of things that never got finished. I'll go back and listen to them now and be like, boy, this sounds fantastic. If only we had stopped working on this one thing and just thrown a vocal on it, this would be done.
Yeah.
And I think at some point we were like, let's just go into a studio and knock it out and I like what we did, but I have I'm thinking of like miles of tape, but it's not tape, obviously, but of cool ideas and cool experimentation and things that I would eventually like to see the light of day.
Right.
And that, I hope somehow y'all's lost album finds a.
I do too. I mean, I still have a lot of that music, and the funny thing is like, so there's so much in the moment that you can be so precious about that. It could be days, but months, years, like it goes away. You don't remember like that exact sound, so you kind of, like you said, it can cut both ways where you're like, we're going to care about this more now than ever. So let's make sure that we get what we want. In those the construct of going in for a couple weeks and having a producer, not only is time limited, but what there is trust in somebody else or others that we really struggled with early on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So, and part of it because we were taking it from stem to stern, there was going to be no other filter, you know, outside of mastering.
And that's a great thing too.
Yeah, there's, like I said, it kind of makes some sense when you look at the evolution of where it started and where it is now, because it kind of shaped us. I think I work harder at it than I would have otherwise, because I was seeing Tim working so hard, you know, like, man, and also it was trying to vie for a place where it's not feeling like as good, you know, like not. So it made me work harder, if not to contribute. It's like, well, if I'm not contributing, well, then what am I doing? And I think that was the irony of when Tim left is I felt the most comfortable at that time. Like, man, I've kind of solidified my place. Like I'm really valued, you know, and that was just my own kind of
leading up to him leaving.
Yeah. Right at that point, because I still to this day love being a sideman. Mm-hmm. Like I like just kind of playing my part, you know, and in some ways feel more comfortable doing that. I still love doing it to this day. And that's what I felt like I was doing. Like I am complimenting him, you know, like I'm singing harmonies and playing guitar, you know, and talking or whatever, you know, just trying
any
to
way I can help.
Any way I can help. And I felt like that took some time. And so when that switched, I'm like, well, shit, you know, like I was feeling quite comfortable. And sometimes that's how life can be, where you're like, you get comfy. Okay, well, let's rip that Band-Aid off.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, was there a thought of not continuing?
Not really, because it happened so quickly. And I to this day, in some ways, and I'm sure even Tim, all the guys could be like, man, that's 2 years of my life that, you know, I poured into something that's may never see the light of day. And the time was something that I hated losing, you know? So yeah.
It was just a matter of like, well, it's too late to turn back now. Like,
yeah. I think I didn't want that to kind of be the end of well, I didn't want it to be the end of the band, but I didn't want it to be like, yeah, those 2 years are wasted and say la vie, do something else, you know? Like, no, somehow maybe, because one of the songs actually did, it was an instrumental, did get put on the album. It was called Veil. But if not the music, at least the time and the energy and the effort, and we had a studio, like we had gear, you know, like, no, we're going to use our everything that we have, that we've invested in, and try at least to continue on. Because at the time, it's not like we made some big announcement. Simon knew, but nobody else knew. It's like, well, worst case, we fail, at least internally, and say, we can't, it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
We got to call it, you know. But I don't know if we had the whole album when we showed Simon some material, but that was a big moment too, because it was like kind of starting over. Like, what do you think, Simon? It's not Tim anymore. It's me, and here's I don't even know. I can't remember if it was demos or if it was actually like kind of rough mixes of the actual album, because we didn't. I think by that time, especially if not for time, and I'm sure you know this well, because we were guilty of demoitis a lot in the early days, where it's like, oh, that's just the demo. I'm like, okay, well, where we're like, man, we're building songs. Obviously, yes, of course, you could have multiple takes and all that and versions, but like at some point, it's like, this is the song that we're working on, and that is a final, you know, tracks of a song, you know. Yeah. So I think we got better at that, you know, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I think, you know, and the fact that you guys did, you know, like kind of force your way through it, and you're still doing that and still like exist in that form, you know, is great. Like, I think that's fantastic. I mean, I love it that, it seems like everything personally is good, because I know those things are hard when they happen. It can be a lot.
The timing, even though, like I said, it wasn't what I wanted, we at least were able to afford the time to pour into it. Whereas now, just because we're older, we all have families and not everybody lives here. Just comes down to logistics sometimes, where it's like, how do we continue to do this and still wanting to do it at a level where it's like, well, let's still uphold a level of I don't know, just doing what we all feel is good and right and up to snuff, of what we're going to put out under the Midlake moniker or whatever.
Right.
And if not, then let's hold off and, we do other projects or do a solo album, collaboration, do, other things, which everybody does anyways now, which that's also an awesome thing, is that even with Antiphon, after Tim had left, for the most part, I think maybe Mackenzie had done some other things, but even that kind of was difficult because Midlake was so like singular, like we're doing Midlake. After that, part of stopping after Antiphon, at least for a handful of years, was I want to do a collaboration, and that's when we did Banquet. Or I want to do a solo album, and that's when I did the whole EB the Younger thing with Matt out at Ecolab. And it wasn't, or even the Gold Brothers. I mean, that was even something just like, I just love this music and that voice and want to do this other thing because it's different than Midlake, And I think the idea was at the time, and still is like, well, all these things can coexist,
right.
Like,
yeah, right. Like I said, all that energy when you guys were young, and we're all young, and we're all like having those, you still have those dreams are very fresh and very new, and you're really, really chasing them. And then, like, I think my dreams have changed and mutated in very cool ways and ways I had not anticipated, but I have stayed true to what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's like, oh, this can be many things. Midlake is, doesn't have to be everybody's, we don't all have to live in a house together,
right.
Guys, we can live in a house with other people. It's fine. We can let go of that. And there's a couple other strings we can let go of, and this thing will still work. And I think that's really,
that took
great.
Some time. And even when I was dating Kristen, obviously after we got married, didn't have any kids, we were still very active with Midlake and touring and such. It's crazy. And this too. It's like things change, because at the beginning it's like, it's almost like your world revolves around music, and then that you got to put it in its right place, and even probably if I had a recording of, conversations that we might have had when I'm younger, like, if you don't like this, well, this is kind of, it's like, well, let's, we've evolved from that, like, now she's like, I don't like this. You're going to be gone for how long?
Yeah. There was you have like less people depending on you and stuff. Yeah, you're less tethered, you know. Is like, at what point you guys now, you specifically, I work with you in a non-musical, it's music related,
sure,
music adjacent,
right?
But you've kind of like, at what point, I know you guys opened a bar together. How did that come about?
Well, really, that was at the time when we were touring Courage of Others, and we were making a little bit of money, and it was like, wow, well, what should we do with this money? And of course, a band is going to be, let's start a bar, you know. So much of even our travels were, going to bars, and obviously seeing, different types of interior design or just architecture, and really just kind of being a fan of that, getting the opportunity where Pascal Bar is in a pretty old building for Texas, 1877, and getting to be just that, really interior decorators, we didn't have, I mean, I went to school for business, but that doesn't mean that I know how to run a business, you know. It just means I got a piece of paper, you know. So it was building it out, spending money to build it out, and then leaning on my brother, who was living in Houston at the time, Jeremy, who moved up to Denton, and kind of figuring it out together, and really just looking at YouTube videos of, you know, how to make this cocktail or that, or just learning along the way. Because I think the guys really leaned on me more with the operational side of it, and then we collectively all were kind of just doing the accoutrement and like, oh, that would be cool there, or this would be cool furniture or whatnot. And I loved both sides of it. I really did. And we were lucky enough at the time, I think, it's 2011 when it opened, October of 2011, that we knew enough people and still like we're young enough to like, we go out and let's just call our friends and come to our new bar. And it was only a 50 cap bar, you know, and it was different than a lot of the other offerings of it being kind of speakeasy, cocktail forward, that folks came. And it's kind of always been the engine that could. It's just kind of like it does its thing. It's like I said, it's small, which I kind of in some ways feel like is the right mixture of things, being kind of niche and small, you know, like, oh, that's cool, that'll work, does fine. And it's you know, the crazy things is, you know, those guys are still owners of the bar, and we've done some changes within the bar, but it's still kind of the same thing that it was when we opened it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I've always loved the place, the decor, the whole thing. Like, it's just I had some people in town last night from Fort Worth, and we're kind of getting what do we, you know, a couple, where should we go now? And I was like, well, you can do this, or you can do this, or you can do this. And Pascal makes the list of like, you know, if you want this vibe, go here. If you want this vibe, go here. If you want this vibe, go here. You know, choose your own adventure from here. And, but I mean, it is unique. It certainly beats just having another.
Yeah, you know, at the time, because probably Dan's was probably the place that we would go to the most. And I still love Dan's. But the one thing that we were doing, because obviously it's not a venue, we just, you know, just wanted to have a place that you could talk, and there's no cover, obviously, and just kind of a cool, comfy vibe, you know, warm, cozy vibe, good music. We eventually got jazz on Sunday nights. That wasn't a thing when we started, but it was like, man, Sundays are slow. What should we do? And Mike Luzecki, you know, I mean, he's still there, and just it's become like one of our best nights, you know. So yeah, it's kind of like there's fun things I think along the way, as we were kind of talking about before, that you can kind of throw out there and try and do. But I'm thankful that it's still there, because it's kind of, as we've gotten older, well, we live in a kind of a cyclical town of youth, where it's like, oh, it's almost like a rite of passage. You're like, oh, I'm 21 now. Let's go to Pascal or wherever, you know. And I love that. You know, it's great to see that, because otherwise it would die. You know, it's got to kind of have a new crop of folks. Yeah,
and I think if you might have mentioned at the outset, like, you know, it exists, like it lives, it perseveres, you know, and that's in business. I think that's a feat.
It is, especially these days. I mean, getting through, you know, COVID was its own beast, but then it's like, well, also people just evolve and change. I feel like that's the name of this episode, evolution. I've said it like many times, but people stop drinking maybe, or they stay at home and they don't want to spend money, or they just they have this, you know, barrier that makes it harder to go out, you know. And that's the tough thing, whether it's you're playing a show and you need people to come see you, or you have a restaurant, or you have a cafe, or you have a bar. Like, you're depending on people to come out and come to you, and for better or worse, that's not how all things are consumed now. So it's like, it has to have that element. And I just think part of the logistical aspect of just being a little bit niche and small and trying to be great too. Is like we want to be a really world class, not like, oh yeah, that's just cool for Denton. Like, no, we want someone from anywhere to come in there and be like, whoa, this is a cool spot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. I mean, that's
thank you.
It's completely unique, for real. And then how does like Norman Roscoe come about?
Norman Roscoe was after, well, it was actually right before Antiphon. My wife, Kristen, was living in Nashville, and we were kind of between Nashville and Denton. We didn't have any kids at the time, and she was working for Nordstrom, and she'd gotten an opportunity, and I was like, well, yeah, let's do it. It'll just kind of be fun to go back and forth, and now's the time that we could even do something like that. And my business partner with Norman Roscoe, Ranger, was living in College Station still, and we stayed friends. We had met in college and kept our friendship, and always kind of dreamed about doing something together, whatever that was. And he was really the entrepreneurial spark early on, because he had a vintage clothing shop on the Strip in College Station when we were in college. I'm like, man, this dude, he's doing his own business. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he had gone on to do other businesses too after I'd left and graduated, but he would come up and visit too. He obviously knew all the Midlake guys and Denton and such. So we had basically, I think even before we knew what we were going to do, he had found a job in Decatur to try to maybe forge a new path, because he had kind of come to a crossroads of a new chapter. His wife, and he had his first daughter in College Station, but came up, and we basically were about to go on tour for Midlake, and we're like, well, what if we printed some posters? And we kind of rubbed two nickels together, got some equipment to print these posters, just one color posters. And we did a run of them, and it kind of was like the spark to say, man, maybe we could get better gear and do this more full time. His wife and daughter had moved up. They got a house. We kind of parked into the garage with all this gear and just started doing more stuff, obviously for Midlake, but then like going to other friends and being like, hey, do you need, and we had like a dim light in the garage. It couldn't hardly see, like it was just, we were faking it to make it,
cool.
And that was kind of the beginning of it and how it became. And it's kind of taken paths. I say paths because now we do like have a retail shop. That wasn't a part of the original plan. We do wholesale, and we do live events as well. Yeah. And that's fun to just get out of Dodge and just meet people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a huge, just endeavor that just two friends that are still very close friends that love just creating stuff and bringing other people's ideas to life as well, and just seeing where things go. So it's been really, really cool journey with Ranger.
I dig it, man. You like you seem to just have fun with it, and I think that's like an important outlet of your personality, because you're like, you don't always get to be fun in a serious rock and roll band,
right?
Like, you know what I mean?
Well, sure.
Like, that sounds dumb to people who don't like. I don't know, but you're still you have to like kind of perform to your music or something, and like Midlake's kind of like a serious band or something. Like it doesn't like, there's nothing like it doesn't it's like got a heaviness. It's not like lighthearted or something,
yeah. And you're right, and. It's tough because I mean, it is kind of a more cerebral type of thing. And I think Tim probably embodied that more so, and I, as any of the guys would attest then and now, is like kind of a goofball, and just bring a little lightness to it, buoyancy to the equation, hopefully balance it out, and then obviously, now kind of just things aren't as precious, like I was saying, and you kind of, I want to have fun with it. It's like, it's that luxury of being like, well, if this isn't fun, I don't want to do it, and I'm thankful for that, that we're able to kind of hopefully check both boxes, and we even say that with the folks that work with us, like, man, we want this to be safe, obviously, for you to make some money, but let's have fun too, you know?
It is fun. It's cool. And like, I like the, just the, you know, spirit of it on the square. Like, I like going in there. I like taking people I had some friends who were moving to town and stuff, but like, you know, that something on y'all's strip there with the candy store and everything was like taking them in there and like, you know, they have a baby and they're buying a onesie that, you know, might, and like just something about it. There's like a little bit of a inside joke, you know, or something. You're like, oh my God, someone made a shirt for that.
Right.
And like, that's really fun and really cool. And, like to me, like works so well in Denton and from people, especially if you in a town that's full of, I'm here for the first band kind of thing, you know, like, or I like their early stuff, you know?
And that building itself plays to it so well, it wasn't a part of the original model. And it's not, frankly, a part of many print shops model where you've got retail in the front and then you can kind of see how the sausage is made in the back. And that, even like obviously with live events, people turn into like little kids, like, oh, you're making it right now, you know, and it goes into the oven, quote unquote, you know, like, we're going to fresh off the press, right?
And you know, being able to take your kid around and like him with the jumpsuit, the coveralls on, and like, you know, that event we did last year that he printed, he printed the shirt that I have.
Yes.
And he rang me up and he was so proud. Like that was, you know, and yeah, you seem like a person who's very much like, let's try it. Let's try something. And you, with the understanding, not everything's going to work, but you have to try something. Yeah. You know, seem to constantly be wanting to like push yourself out of your comfort zone and going, well, let's just do it. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's do it.
It's true. And I love, I mean, I have an entrepreneurial spirit, but part of that is like when we started doing the band, I mean, all of these things are like, it's like another band in a way, you know, and leaning on one another and throwing things out there. And cause also it's like, I don't want to get off the ride either. Like,
no way.
I want to keep going. And it is fun, to do that. And I think Denton as a whole has been a town where creating something feels more possible, you know, and maybe I'm biased in that way, but I do feel that energy and have always, and you could say it's harder now and that's not untrue, but I still feel like the community wise, and even this conversation of like, let's create something. Let's talk about it. Let's start a band. Let's write a song, you know, let's have a kid. Let's start a business.
Yeah. There's something there. You're right. There is something here. And I could see that coming from the outside. You know, for me, I grew up, you know, in Dallas, but a very similar scene. It seems like to be like, I don't know. I'm pulling at whatever I can. I'm looking for things. And it seemed when I was hungry for new music and, you know, it was all about what's going on locally at that time or whatever. Every time I found a band I really liked, it was like, oh, they're from Denton. They're from Denton. They're from Denton. And so my mind was just like, oh, if you're going to be in a good band, you got to be from Denton. And I was just like, well, I'm going there.
Right.
I'm going to meet those people. I'm going to be in that band. And there is something about this place that just says, you know, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Do it. Go ahead. Try it out. And like it is, and it may be harder, but, you know, I like the location. I like the, you know, the proximity to the big cities, as different as they are. And that for some people, for outsiders, this is a cool place to come and visit. And,
absolutely.
You know, I got to see it last night, you know, like you know, band, out of town band with a very welcoming, you know, full Denton crowd on a Thursday night. And
they used my super reverb.
They used my drum kit. So the whole thing, you know.
It's funny because every year, I think it's every year, and I have seen that show and it's great. But Dan's like, can I use that super reverb again? So yeah, it's awesome. And, you know, even though I feel like in those early days, I feel like we struggled to be involved, and like just be more a part of the community. I felt like we kind of, if not because we were in a cave, and it took some time, but I'm so thankful for that. And obviously present company included with the relationships, and bands like Centromatic were huge to us because I even say to this day, just like, I'm still blown away when I see them live and just take notes. Like, this something organic's happening where these guys just create sound that's like moves me.
Oh yeah.
But just being a fan and then now being friends with most of those guys, it's like, it's just cool,
Yeah.
And there's obviously many other examples of that. And I value it, and I don't know if that's something that still is created in that realm, especially specifically with music. But I do know there is still a great artist community, and I do still know that there's people that are creating things and kind of like, I don't know, just helping one another, leaning on one another. And I don't mean that it doesn't exist at all in music. I know it's more broad, I guess, in all these different kind of avenues, and music maybe isn't all in the same way that it was, but part of that's because, and I've heard others talk about this, like, well, I'm just removed from it more, and I have old buddies that I sometimes get to see and hang out with, maybe play, but it's just different because I'm not going out every night.
Yeah. And I think we came here at a time where everything was more hand to hand. If Mackenzie wants you to hear what they're working on, he's got to drop it in the mailbox.
Right.
It is not a quick, I'm just going to, attach a file and, mail it off. I think there's something that, whatever, it was just more handmade. It was more person to person, at the time. And so, yeah, it is still happening for someone in some way.
Right.
But it feels like in the way that it happened for us, maybe it's not possible anymore, or something kind of got lost, but there is something that makes an imprint on you, and you see a band and you identify with them, not only as musicians, but they're like, oh, they're a part of, we're part of this community.
Yeah. And I brought up Robert Gomez earlier. He ended up becoming a really close friend. We even had started a record label at a time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to see, I guess, those that community element growing and kind of serving each other. Where at first, like you're kind of saying, and I did feel this way in some ways early on, where sometimes you play in Denton, you'd kind of get the kind of like, the audience of like, what are you trying to do? I'm like, just playing music, like, and I feel like that changed a little bit over time. If not some just insecurity in my own head, just like, let's go talk with that person or go hang out and see what they're doing, and kind of like becoming more, not that it should be a adversaries or any type of competition. It's like, let's all win, let's all play, like
I identify with so much of that.
Yeah.
With it. Yeah, it was tough, like there was something about it that felt competitive. And I think there was like a bit of when we were all young, it was like, well, maybe if you make it, then that diminishes my chance of it. And I still feel that from people, and I do not think it exists. I actually think if you make it, it makes my chances better.
Right.
And I think, success is, I'm like constantly telling people there's like plenty of room at the table, and I don't think because something good happens for you, it's not going to happen for me. But I think there was a time, and there's like envy and things like that. There's why did you become successful and I didn't? And it's probably like my CD wasn't in that person's hand, it got passed on and whatever. Or maybe someone heard it and was like, no, I don't like, that's no good, I don't want that, or that is not the right thing right now.
Yeah, you're right, it's a myriad of things, and luck is a huge part of that, where I think, I've shared a ton of music with labels and gotten so many more no's than a yes, but I'm just thankful that they listen. You know, we've tried, you know, to take out bands on tour a lot. We've, you know, took Sarah Jaffe a long time ago, Matthew and the Arrogant Sea, obviously Robert Gomez, and it's just part of it. Like I was saying, it's a means to an end because you get to hang out with your buddies on tour, but also hope their music can move somebody and create an opportunity. And I think, if anything, I think doing that more on both sides of it, of folks helping others, but also throwing more lines out there and just like, how can I get out there more and be in front of somebody? Because you never know who that person might be, because it's still a thing, you know, still labels are still, you know, putting out music. People are still buying music and listening to music and buying, you know, an album or a shirt or whatever. And so it's like, the more that you kind of put yourself out there, obviously it's the only way that and yes, there's a lot more noise, but you know, I still think there's an avenue for it, you know.
If I can, you know, you guys got to do some shows with Pearl Jam. You know, that was at the age when we're all discovering this, and you know, you might be a year older than me or something, but like, you know, that was like a pinnacle thing. And so, is there what's that like? What's like a little bit of does it feel like a dream realized, or is it, or
I mean,
it was
like it was very dreamlike. You know, really, even that relationship, which was really with Jeff Ament, the bass player, was because Jason Lytle from Grandaddy was doing opening for us on a tour, and he knew Jeff because Jeff was a Grandaddy fan. Jason was just doing like a solo tour opening up for us, and we were in Montana, where he was living at the time, and Jeff lives, and he came to the show, and so there ended up just kind of being like a loose relationship, maybe having his email address or something. There was some type of connection. And even now, you know, I mean, you can always ask, and the worst they could say is no. I saw Pearl Jam had announced some dates. I emailed Jeff and said, hey, you know, we've got an album out, you know, we're, you know,
remember me?
Yeah. And I, you know, I've kept in touch, and he's awesome. I mean, all the guys obviously are amazing. But he said yes. And originally it was supposed to be a longer tour. And I don't know if it was Eddie or the band collectively decided, like, we're just going to do a night of, you know, a night with Pearl Jam or whatever, not even have an opener. So we only opened a little bit, but it was amazing. If not, like, my family doesn't typically come to shows, you know, like my mom or dad or brothers, sisters. So it was kind of to play the American Airlines Center and know like my mom or my brother is a huge one too, because he was the one that introduced me to Pearl Jam when I'm a kid, you know, and like got into that because of him, you know. And there's lots of other music that happened that way. So to play and then to go watch Pearl Jam with them after and singing the songs, it's just like full circle. It was amazing, you know? So yeah, huge.
What about Neil Young?
That was pretty cool too. You know, we opened for him in Istanbul, and I honestly don't even know how that we got on that bill. We had done a like a festival type thing in the UK that he was a part of as well, and ironically, the band we just have a great following in Turkey, you know, cool. And and some of it might be partly because of that, you know, because I mean, it's Neil Young. I mean, that's kind of a cool gig to play, and after he played, because it was outdoors, and it was a little bit like just kind of like, it wasn't as like formal as far as like dressing room and green room. He kind of had an area and we had an area, but after he played, you know, I could see some people were being ushered in to like say hi, take pictures. I just kind of acted like I was supposed to be there because we opened the show, but we still weren't supposed to go in that area. But I was like, I'm going.
It's like those people aren't supposed to be in that area either.
I sneak in there, and after he had taken a picture, I just kind of go up and like I did like a selfie with him. He's like, "Oh, one of these things," you know. I'm like, "Yeah, please, take the picture
please
and go."
Please
and,
don't be mad.
Yeah, and then like post it, and every other year kind of embellish the story, like, "Oh, me and Neil Young were sitting there doing lines."
yeah. I wrote a song with him.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
that's so cool.
that was really neat.
Man, what a ride. I love it. I really, don't, you said something about like, I don't want to get off the ride, and I really hope you don't. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah. And then like, you mentioned, Midlake had done the Europe thing, and I imagine there's a US component.
We have some more Europe, and I'm hopeful that we get some US stuff. I think sometimes, I mean, it sounds cliche. We just don't do as well in the US. And so kind of trying to say, okay, well, could you do like the Northeast or kind of do a West Coast run? It does get, we make a joke where it's like, it's just hard to play Phoenix on a Tuesday night now, So it's like, how do you make it make sense for everybody involved and still, cover that ground? Because you want to also, you put out an album, a label put it out. Let's, try
to the people.
Yeah. Represent that and do our part in trying to promote the thing. And that's become the biggest difficulty is, how much time, you could be away and making it make sense for everybody. So yeah, that's the only downside I think of specifically with Midlake these days, is that it does take a lot, and it should, that to just kind of get it together. And then it's like, okay, well, like, could we do those things without making an album, basically is what I'm saying. Can we go back to these places that make sense for everybody? Or do we need to kind of like, okay, let's make another record, spend the money and time and effort. And if that's the case, okay. But it's trying to find that balance, I guess, because it's not like it used to be, and that's okay. Yeah. It's just, trying to make sense out of, okay, are we going to fly out and just do this run and then everybody respectively fly home, so yeah.
Man. Well, it's really cool. It's come a long way, and thanks for sharing it, man.
Thank you, Grady.
I really appreciate your time.
Love chatting with you about this and all things.
Back at you, man. Thank you.
Yep.